Okay, let me break it down for you.
Judgment, prejudice, bias, it all still exists.
If I want to take this huge, overwhelming problem, I have to start with myself.
Finally clicked for me.
Compassion is a necessity.
So, a couple months ago, I read about a 2013 study done by Dr. Arthur Seniotis, and he found out that there are animals out there, whole species, that are more capable of cognition than us humans. So I thought to myself, what the hell kind of name is Art Seniotis? But then to test out this theory, I did a little case study on one of my dogs, Ginger. And she does all these weird little quirks. Oh, yeah, so cute. She has all these weird little quirks, all these weird little things that she does to different people, different things to different people. For example, she might think that your foot is a chew toy. She thinks that I really enjoy chasing her around the house, which I really don't. And probably worst of all, most tragically, is that she thinks my sister is the best person on earth. Now, essentially what she's done here is that she has compartmentalized all these different responses, all these different constructed actions to react to different stimuli, to react to changes in her environment, in this case, to the different people who enter her field of vision. And if you've done a bit of psychology, you might understand that what she's displaying here is cognition. In other words, she has been, and probably still is, learning. Just as if you and I were learning mathematics, or maybe a new language, or maybe if a kid were to learn what behavior is acceptable or not. So, what Dr. Seniotis actually found is that there are actually animals that are more capable of learning than us humans. But then if that is the case, then what makes us humans more intelligent? Well, it all boils down to how we actually spend our cognition. In this example, I took two species of animals, ourselves, the humans, and the chimpanzees, and I assumed that we have more or less the same amount of cognition. But while we spend most of our resources, and keep in mind that resources are never infinite, while we spend most of our resources in critical thinking than we do in physical cognition, the chimpanzees have done exactly the opposite. Now what this really means is the chimpanzees have a great advantage when it comes to swinging between trees, weaving between branches. But when it comes to critical thinking, we are leagues ahead of them. And critical thinking is that part of your mind that asks, why? It's that part of your mind that seeks to understand the world. Could also be that part of your mind that seeks to ask how. That part of your mind that wants to change the world for better. It is also the part of Einstein's mind that led him to discover that E is equal to mc squared. So really, critical thinking is just a basic form of curiosity. And I suppose curiosity has been the one most useful tool that I've ever used in this Greenstone project. And I think it's actually time for me to tell you what my Greenstone project has been about. So, in the past year, my Greenstone project has been really simple, actually. In the past year, I simply asked myself questions, just like Shanti wants us to do. I asked myself questions, and I seek to answer these questions. Now, I'm going to tell you the truth right here, that this project has evolved, has changed so much in fact, that I doubt that my past self from last year would recognize this project as the same project that he started out with. Now, to lay down some ground rules. Firstly, the theme for this journey, since I thought I should have one, would be beliefs and values. Secondly, the answer that I look for is not necessarily the truth, because I know that the truth is ambiguous. It's way too subjective. There's rarely any absolutes ever in this universe, except when it comes to mathematics, of course. Now, what I look for is something that I myself could believe in. And I've always had this presentation in mind. I've always asked myself, if I were to ask this question, if I were to answer it, would it have its own gravity to engage you? Would it keep you awake? Would it, most importantly, impart a new knowledge upon you, a new perspective, a new insight into the workings of the world, to maybe how you perceive what happens around you? But okay, so what else is different between us humans and the rest of the other animals? We have a sense of humor. We have a concept of time. We understand puns, no matter how bad they can be. And I attribute that to, we attribute that to how we have a system of language, which is unique to the human race. We understand that we all die one day. We also understand we have a concept of morality. But that in itself is a common misconception. There have been many studies done into animals, mammals primarily, of course, that shows that there are lots of animals which understand, have a concept of what we deem as morality. So the question that started me down this path was regarding the nature and our perception of right and wrong. For centuries, for millennia really, us humans, we have been governed by systems, by all these social codes, such as laws, rules, norms, mores, cultures, customs, religions, doctrines. And all these basically tell us what we can or what we can't do. It tells us what is good and what is evil, what is a virtue and what's a vice, what is moral and immoral. So I asked myself, why? Why have we allowed ourselves to be dictated by these concepts that we have made up ourselves? Why have we set these limitations upon ourselves? How have we come to these definitions of what we think is right and wrong? So, when I asked this question in a focus group that I conducted last year, a common and quick response to this question was religion. People believe that we started out with religions, and these are how we adopted morality. These are how we learned what is right and what is wrong. And it could make sense. I mean, if you look at these scriptures, they all basically boil down to what is right and what is wrong. They're filled with people and gods preaching and acting what we believe now as right, and maybe demons doing what we think is wrong. An example of this could be seen when we study texts like Dante's Divine Comedy, La Divina Commedia, in which he explicitly described people and settings, and he embodies good and evil in these things. But it doesn't really make sense, because most of these religions have lost context, some of them even thousands of years ago. Now, for example, every single man in this room have condemned themselves to hell the day they shave their faces. I'm looking at Carl right here, and he's got like a get-out-of-hell-free card right there. It's like, hey, Satan, I think there's a mistake here. How's that? Well, every time I kiss my daughter, I make her cry because, it's tickling her. And like the other day, I made like a whole sandwich out of all the food that gets stuck in there, So, and I'm also going to hell, apparently, because I'm wearing torn clothing. The fashion police up in heaven do not take their jobs very lightly. And who here has ever owned a pet? Maybe a dog or a cat, goldfish. I think I'll be seeing all of you down there. I'm going to have a lot of friends in hell, thanks, guys. Except for Kyle, he's not going down there. So my second argument against this was that what came from a primatologist called Frans de Waal. I actually don't know how to pronounce that name, it's Dutch. Now, in the book, The Bonobo and the Atheist, Frans described several experiments, one of them being done with rats. He pitted one rat against two containers. One container contained a chocolate, and the other contained another rat, sealed off. Now, if you think that this rat would act purely on instinct and go for the chocolate, it would be a sensible guess. It would be acting on its own survival. Eating that chocolate would increase its chances of survival. But instead, what Frans observed was that this rat instead tried to free the trapped rat. Now, this could mean two things. This could either mean the rat understands empathy. This could also mean that this rat hates chocolates. But then I wouldn't have my argument. Now, another experiment described Franz's observation of chimpanzees. When he looked at chimpanzees, he observed that chimpanzees would rather share the food than eat it itself. Once again, this shows you that there are animals out there who have a sense of morality, something that we previously thought was human. But hang on a minute. So we identify all these acts. We identify sharing your resources. We identify trying to save the life of another as acts of morality. But what really defines morality? What makes these good? Firstly, Morality seeks to benefit others more so than the self. Now, if animals have a concept, have an understanding of morality, then could it be that maybe our morality comes from a more primal source than religion? But how? Selflessness is not good for your survival. Selflessness is dangerous for you. For example, if I were to share my food with you during the caveman times, I would have less food for myself. But that's exactly it. That's a keyword. Individuals. We humans are hardly the most individual species on Earth. Far from that, we are actually some of the most pack-oriented mammals on Earth. And that is how our ancestors managed to hunt down mammoths. Now, what this suggests is that altruism, or kindness, is a tool of survival, but not for yourself. It is a tool of survival for your pack, for your group. And because your group sees that you are kind, maybe because you shared a dead rat that you hunted down a week ago, this group has been more inclined to actually accept you in this group, to actually keep you in there. Because you have a group, because you're running with a group, your chances of survival increase. This suggests that morality, empathy, kindness, they're all traits that are passed down from generation to generation, because these are beneficial to you. This means that we evolve morality. So, what this implies is that morality is a mechanism of survival. It is something more primal than religion. It predates religion. This also means that instead of being bred of religion, morality is actually the father of religion. Now, on one hand, you could see this in a more pessimistic manner. You could think that selflessness or kindness all came from individual selfishness, came from thoughts like, because I need to be in this group, I need to please you. I need to give this dead rat to you. But on the other hand, if you were to look at this in a more optimistic manner, you could see how brilliant it is. That kindness is actually something that you use for survival. It is something passed down from generation to generation because it is beneficial, because it is sexy. Now, you could also see this. You could also see how amazing it is that in a way we are more inclined to acts of kindness than evil. In a way, humanity is addicted to kindness. But I think I'm going to finish on this, but I'm going to impart in you one more challenge, because I think the whole idea of this green zone is to leave something behind for you. And I think I could leave for you more than just an insight into the nature of right and wrong. So I challenge you to ask a question. Ask it and find the answer. When you find an absolute answer, something that you know is true, that's great. But you rarely do find these. When you don't, find something that you can believe in. But when you do find what you can believe in, don't hold this belief too softly or too firmly. When a better answer comes along, have the courage to let your belief go. Have the courage to evolve. So, yes, go ask your question now and share your findings. I will be here next year, and I want to hear from you. I want to hear what you find. I want to hear your questions. I want to hear your answers. Share them as I do today. Thank you.